All right, I think we're on. Hey, folks, I'm Alex Hardman, Technical Marketing Engineer with LaunchDarkly, and I'm here to run through a live stream today with you of building an app. Sorry about that. VueJS SDK, and we're going to use a few other components, though, or a few other tools that help make the build really quick. And so today I've done a little scaffold follow along, and you'll get all the source code at the end. All of it's public. And then let's see, if you're interested, you can always take that repo yourself. You'll be able to sign up for a LaunchDarkly trial if you're interested and start playing around. I will fully admit right up front that this is, since it's a live thing, we may not get through all the pieces. So what we're going to do is build out as we go, try and hit the fundamentals. I think you were also promised some jokes, and so I'm going to try to make good on that commitment. Most of my things aren't jokes, they're just awkward things, and so I'll share some of that with you too. Okay, so first, let's see. I'm going to pull up the repo just because it defines some of the tools that we're starting with. Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay, perfect. And we've got, so I'm going to go over to the repo here. And so we're on the main branch of this repo here. And let's see. I don't know if this is the repository here. I'll go pop that in the YouTube comments for everyone, so in case you want to check it out as we go. And apologize for the screen switching here. Okay. So say something. Cool. Okay. Got it. I think I got it here. Okay, so let's jump into the tool sets, and I'll get that link added in just a minute. Okay, so what we've got here for starters is I used using Vue, clearly. That's why we're here. I didn't have a ton of experience with Vue in the past, but done a lot of reactive web programming. And so Vue, I dove right in with Vue 3, which was a whole adventure. And I really love the templating syntax there, even though it's a little like tough to adapt to at first. It's one of these that what I like a lot about it is how it drives me into like a really component-driven design. Okay, so obviously a part of my opinionated tool set is LaunchDarkly. Obviously, it's why I'm here. But one of the things that I think is really profound with LaunchDarkly that I think you're going to have trouble finding elsewhere is that the feature set as a feature management platform is super powerful. And so I've talked to a lot of folks at conferences. I've looked at other solutions, and I've yet to find a solution that has as full-featured a set of or that solves for the problem statements around feature management. So many people talk about having feature flags that they're using to control things, but don't have a way to decouple the deployment from their release, or they don't have a way to target users effectively, or to decouple rules from the presentation. And so that's what I hope some of what you'll see today. A few other just parts of this tool set here. So V, if you haven't used it, like ridiculously fast build, near zero config. I'm a huge fan. I also love to use like component libraries. And so one of the things I do is I like always lean into something that solves a lot of those problems for me. Vuetify in this case is one of them. They don't support Vue 3 as like general availability right now. So it's in beta. Hopefully I picked only components that work right now. Let's see, last couple pieces. So I'm not that opinionated about prettifying code. I just don't want to have to debate it. So I'd love to use something like Exo or Prettier, anything like that just makes it not an argument for me. Finally, Husky, just because, again, I don't like to have to remember to do all this stuff. And I just want it to happen automatically for me. And so, okay, let's see. I think I could paste that link now. Okay. All right. So let's see. Let's dive in a little more. Oh, is that the end of got it. That's the end of my list there. So I think just because we've done a little bit of technical, and then we'll actually start to like just look at what is out there for a site. I'm going to just start with, this is half joke, but also 100% true story. So my daughter's boyfriend, he started a job as a drawbridge operator. He just graduated high school, and I was like, "You're going to be a drawbridge operator?" He's like a super social guy, but you're like, "You're going to sit in a tower all day?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm looking forward to it." He brought books to read and everything. And I was like, "Well, good for you." I'm like, I didn't seem like a fit, but just remember, it's going to have a lot of ups and downs. Nobody's here to laugh at that with me. So, but he really appreciated it. Still took him a minute, but I get a lot of dad jokes. So most of what we do here will be that. All right, really quick. So I'm a huge fan. Oh, I forgot to put Netlify in my list. Huge fan of Netlify. And so I deploy most of my web apps with it. It's so easy and quick to ship. It's hard for me to argue against. So of course, today I'm shipping this with Netlify and I kind of pre-wired things up. So I'm going to keep pushing updates to GitHub, and with any luck, they'll keep releasing on Netlify at the same time. So you'll be able to follow along and see the changes. For right now, what you can see here, so I've got a local version of this app running, which has nothing. And then right now, the actual app that's out and deployed, this is the URL for that. I will share that here. So if you want to follow on the live version, or you'll be able to follow along on screen here and also pull down code as it happens. All right, let's get into the mix. So let's start with the app. And this view is a little noisy right now. So I'm going to get rid of these things and let's just start here. Okay, so the LaunchDarkly docs are some of the best docs I've ever seen. And I'm not saying that because I work here. I'm saying it because I've looked at pieces, I've looked at our APIs, I've looked at our SDKs, and I don't have to talk to anybody or ask anybody about it. I just dig in and it's really easy to grok. So one of the things I'd encourage you to check out if you're interested in playing with any of our SDKs is check out the docs. They have great instructions. And in fact, I'll pull up one of those right now. Not so we can really peruse it here, but just to show you how it like mirrors the code that you'll see that I'm implementing here. All right, so for the Vue SDK, you can see here, it's just an npm install. And then this is the part that I get really psyched about is how easy it is to set up and configure your app. And so, as an example, we're just going to import that plugin, set up our client ID, and then we're going to set up our app. And you'll see mine's a little noisier than this because instead of just these things, I've added in Vuetify and some other stuff. So let's go take a peek and look at what that SDK configuration looks like. Great. So in main.js, and if you've done any Vue development, great. If you haven't, then some of this won't look familiar, but you can always pour over afterwards. And I tried to throw in some comments to help you, give you some breadcrumbs. So here, without trying to take it all in at once, this is the bottom line is where we're configuring the LaunchDarkly client. Here we're pulling the client ID out of an environment variable. And so we're right here, this was just a guard is in case it hasn't been set up yet, we don't try and do this configuration. The rest of this was all around Vuetify and things like that. So don't bother worrying about that right now. All right, next, what we do is, all we're doing is checking, is LaunchDarkly ready? And so this is where we're going to start to change the app live here and start to see it evolve. And then we'll keep shipping those things as we go. So here we're using, so we use hooks in both our React and our Vue SDK. So we have use LD ready and use LD client. In this case, use LD ready just gives you a, yeah, absolutely. Yes, I'll increase the font size. Thanks for asking. So think if I go, zoom in. Okay, let's go. Ooh. So please give me some feedback about whether that's enough or I can zoom in more. No problem. All right. So when we use LD ready, we're just using it to check and make sure that LaunchDarkly is ready. So let's take a look at our app right now. So if we do npm run dev, okay, so we've got our app running here on 5175. Let's take a quick look. Looks like I'm on the wrong port on this one. Okay, no luck. That's okay. Let's see what's going on here. So really quick. Okay, let's see. So LaunchDarkly is not ready yet. Okay, that's because we have to initialize the client. Take a quick look at the docs. We need to have this client ID brought in. And so Thanks, Chrissy. Appreciate the feedback. If we go back to main.js, you can see we're pulling in this ID. And in this case, since this is just the client ID and you could actually get this from my app, I don't mind sharing it here. So we'll uncomment that in my env file. Now we should be back to running now. And let's see. It's funny, it says the app we were just changing said 50. Oh, look. Okay, so now features powered by LaunchDarkly is visible. So what happened was all we did was confirm that, here it is, LaunchDarkly is ready. So we used LD ready, which creates a ref. And so that's a stateful object where Vue will go ahead and, just like in React, say, just like in React, right? The UI is responsive here, okay? And so we use this variable to say vif, so if LaunchDarkly is ready, show this stuff, otherwise hide this stuff. And so, hey, here's that app bar that says features powered by LaunchDarkly. Okay, but that isn't feature flagging yet. So let's see if we can get into something meatier. And so what I did was I set up a few flags ahead of time, most in the off state. So actually I'm gonna pull this one back. We may not get to themes here, just based on timing. So you see there's a number of features here. They're all in the off state. And so I think what we're gonna do here first is to go ahead and let's move this guy over here. Why don't we take and do something to make this easier to share? Because right now we have a couple of URLs. You can't necessarily see them quite as well. So let's enable a QR code so then you can start to see and follow along. So if we go back to our app here, and now we can go to the local version or the deployed version. And if you're looking at your own screen right now, I'd love it, because that's one of the things that I think is really gonna shock you, is the speed with which this happens. And I can't get back to my screen fast enough for it. Oh, except it's not there. Oh, I might not have the code yet. Let's take a look. There's no code there. Okay, so let's do this. We're gonna go back one step. And I did this intentionally because I wanted you to see this idea of being able to dark launch a feature. Let's roll this back really quick here. So imagine you're the engineering team and you want to ship this new feature, but you want product wants to have some control over when it rolls out, who sees it and when. So what you've done is you go ahead and ship it. And in the past, you might have written logic to say, don't show it until whenever, or don't show it except for these people. But you don't want to have to write that code. That's that problem of coupling your rules with your presentation. So what I'm going to do is pop in this code for this QR code. It's just using a QR code library to generate it. And as you can see, it's using the LaunchDarkly Vue SDK, use LD flag. And so what we've got is there's two pieces here. So right now, this is using how we affect the background color. But we also have, let's see, there it is, login. And so what we'll do is, this guy right here. So right now we're going to throw a vif, that is, don't render this thing unless, and then we'll use another flag for this. Or just say let QR code. And for now, we're just going to initialize this as false and let Vue know that it's a responsive variable. Okay. And then, oh my goodness. Oh, they did not close things right. That's all right. And then, so we'll say here, let's use this. Okay. Now Vue still shouldn't be mad anymore. All right, but it won't show that QR code if that's off. But let's also make sure we're pulling that value from LaunchDarkly. So if we say display QR code and we say use LD ready, what's handy is LaunchDarkly's built a lot of things to make it developer friendly. Oh, what was that key for that QR code feature? There we go, I just grabbed it. Okay. And we will say, so the way that the SDKs work is that you can set up a default value. So that means whether you can contact the LaunchDarkly APIs, because remember, everything breaks all the time, right? So you might have issues with network or things like that. We have a CDN, flag delivery network, actually, that's globally distributed. So when you make a flag change, you see it in milliseconds around the globe. But all our apps, like each of the apps that folks are building, don't always have that same level of connectivity. So what we'll do is we'll tell it, uh, we'll say false as the default. Okay. And so now we've got a responsive variable, display QR code, and we're using it on whether to show this navigation drawer or not. Let's take a look, see how that's looking over here. Okay, let's see. And the QR code is, okay, so it's good that the QR code is showing, except somehow, if I feel like I'm not getting the value I expected there. Let's take a look. So I think this is actually part of the whole thing in live things like that, is actually learning how to work through it, because like I've built a bunch of apps already. I run into different things each time. And so let's pull up the debugger one more time, because learning how to work your way through these things is part of the recipe. All right, let's pull it over here. Okay, so is LaunchDarkly ready? Aha, okay. So what's wrong, I believe, is it the value piece. That's funny, I just had this working. So I have, okay, so let's go back and look at this guy now. Cool, as long as they're darkly ready, false. Okay. Oh, look, let's see. So the thing I'm console logging, right, because this is a Vue responsive variable, right? That, so if I console log this, let's see what that value is coming through as. Okay. I'm just going to refresh. Okay, great. So it is coming through as false. Looks like that's a logic problem on my part. Let's take a look here. So if my VF isn't working here, try this another way. So I will use that flag over here in QR code. And let's see if we can just hide it from there. Quick little move around. Doodly doo. Oh, speaking of which, while I'm doing this, I'll tell you another awkward story. So I spent a lot of time engineering, and I can tell you about some funny and not so funny times when production got broken because of me. But I think my favorite stories from all that time are the cringy ones. Um, so okay, once on a conference call, I got distracted, and I'm telling you this story, so I try not to repeat it today. Um, Back in the day when I didn't feel like I had to focus that closely on what people were saying, I would just I was on a conference call. There was a couple dozen people, and I decided I wasn't that interested in what was going on. And so what happened was, oops, let's see, there we go. I started browsing Facebook in the middle of the conference call, but I was the one sharing my screen. So it was kind of an awkward moment for us. Sorry, I keep clicking the wrong thing here. And I got a lot of IMs right away that told me that I was still sharing my screen. So trust me, that won't be happening today. Try a VIF again here. And so the way VIF works is basically, so Vue has a couple different ways to handle the visibility of things. VIF controls whether something renders or not. VShow or VHide leaves it in the elements on the screen, but changes the display properties. Okay, so let's try this one more time here, see if I'm, so there we go. We've moved this inside this component. Now we're just controlling whether this element displays or not. Display QR code, use LD ready. We can already see the values coming back as false. And I think that should do it. Oh, we need to return this, right? Okay, last piece. Okay. Last piece. I am not having great luck with that. All right. Um, let's see. Thanks for everybody for bearing with me. And this is what has tripped me up a few times is as I work with Vue, some of the syntax is a little different. Let's just try a hide here or something like that because I'm clearly not, I'm missing something. Is that the one I can use? No. I'm going to pull up the docs here in just one sec, just so we can, okay. I am not stoked with this. Let's see. So if I go, and the Vue docs are actually pretty super too. So as somebody that, let's see, conditional rendering, here we go. Yeah, so VIF, awesome. Vue is awesome. Just conditional rendering. So I'm not quite sure. Okay, let's go. Let's give this one more shot here. And I want to keep going because even if I don't get this working right here, right now, what I'm going to do is publish the code so you can look at it afterwards. All right. So let's just go back one more time here and we'll set. So if I don't do any of this, yep. So display QR code, ref is false. I think based on what I'm seeing here, else if, okay. And so now it should only be false, unaffected by that. And we've got display. Okay, let's see if we're still seeing it. All right. Well, I am going to take the L on this one. But the good news, I think, is if I'm to push up this code now, what you will be able to do is see the QR code and get to it from there. So apologies, I couldn't see that to working right now. I did it before. I'm missing some little nuance there. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that stuff. Because we're so snug on time during this. Okay, so I'll make sure afterwards, once I just pick up on the oops there, then I should be able to come back and give you an update on what actually changed there. Yeah, I do not know. Let's see. Just looking. Okay. All right, moving on. So the other thing I want to show you, and this is part about LaunchDarkly is really cool. Oh, and did I actually push? There we go. Hit push, and then you'll start seeing that on the deployed site. Okay. And so keep your eyes here. You should see that in no time. One of the other cool parts is a lot of times we think about, actually, I will. We think about LaunchDarkly in terms of, or sorry, we think about feature management in terms of Booleans. And Brian, who's one of the more senior developer relations folks here, he's done a great talk on Beyond the Boolean, where you start to look at feature management way beyond, on and off switches, and instead look at, how can you produce different effects or change the behavior of an application more than just switches. And so, one idea here is, say, like what I started to play with was the background color on the QR codes or the foreground color. And so you can get into providing those. So you'll see here, foreground color on that, where we've got several variations. We've got yellow, black, blue. And so let's start playing with that here, because I think those seeing what we call the multivariate features is very cool. All right. So let me just grab that code over here. Oh, right. We already brought in all the QR foreground and background color. I'm hopeful we're going to see a better outcome here because I just had this working. Actually, let's see actually if I have that page up locally. So a little confused there. Yeah. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn on the background color and the foreground color. And if you're following along, you should see this change immediately on your page, and we should see it change here. Hopefully I don't have to wear egg on my face again here, because I'm not quite sure what didn't pick up there. All right, so here we are, regular black and white QR code, a little boring for my taste. Okay, so this is foreground color. Not really sure how yellow in the foreground on a QR code is going to work. But the nice thing is, what if I don't have to change the code to change it, and I can remotely change the display of my QR code color? Ooh, that yellow looks tough to pick up on. If this is, oh, look at that, it's live on the site too. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, just because I want you to see that speed, which I always just surprises me, I'm going to keep that screen up in the background, and let's at least change that background color now too. Okay, so oops, come on. All right, here we go. So check this. The background color is currently off. Let's turn it on. And when we do, instantly you see that change in the background. And so that's that flag delivery network at work. So within milliseconds, everywhere in the world, that change is now available. Is anybody else following along on the site and seeing those changes themselves? So you notice I did, and this is, I think, one of these remarkable things about feature management platform, as opposed to just thinking about this as feature flagging, is I can change the behavior of a system now without having to change the code. You'll notice that my code does not have any conditional statements here around color. I'm not making decisions based on what I get back from LaunchDarkly. I'm making the application respond to that. Okay, so let's try one different color just so you can see this in effect. I'm really not a fan of the foreground color as yellow. So let's change it up. How about something handsome like a blue? Okay. Oh, that's much worse. Okay, and I will change the background color, and then we will move along. Cool. Okay, so let's serve up. Earlier, I tried blue on blue, and that was not a success, as you might imagine. All right, there we go. That's a nice contrast in that one now. So in any event, you've seen the system change a number of times, and you know that it's not me playing with the code. You're seeing that live and in person, both locally and then remotely. Okay, let's keep moving along here. So the other thing I wanted to do was to get into some, kind of give you a progression of what else you might be able to do with this. And let's see, where's my, there it is. All right, I've got another joke for you though. So again, I have daughters. I make a lot of dad jokes, and I always found it interesting how we wish people luck. And so, right, in acting, when somebody's going on stage, you say break a leg, which sounds so antithetical, and it doesn't make any sense. But then you say, like, baseball, you're going to knock it out of the park. I had friends that golf, and I asked them, I said, how do you wish somebody luck? They said, hit them straight. I'm like, okay. And when my daughter started playing soccer, I was like, how do people wish you luck in soccer? I'm like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. And she said, well, I don't really know. I'm like, okay, I'll just make it my own. And so every time I would drop her off at soccer, I'd say, kick him in the balls. So I think she liked that one. I got smiles for that. All right. So let's see, where's the next one we're at? Okay. Okay. Let's look at, so one of the things I started playing with, and again, this is a thing that I think is really interesting, is this idea of how you can configure your system based on the consumption of these feature flags. So I want to show you another model for this here. And again, I guess I'm not going to get too wrapped up in whether I get the code letter by letter right, but what I want to show you is in principle what we're doing here. And so for imagine this. You want to roll out some new UI changes. You don't want to show them to everybody, and maybe you have folks you want to target. And so let's add a login component here so you could start to identify your users. Okay, so get this empty component here. Okay, so I've added it to the app. Okay, but there's no login component here, clearly, because I actually do know how to use VIF sometimes. I just don't know why it's not working there. Um, so let's take a look at that login component and see what we would add and how we would use that. Okay, so we've got some way to take in the username and a button to do the actual login. But what do we do with that? And so what we do here is we use the LaunchDarkly client to identify the user. And so in this case, what we'll do is we did use LD client. This gives us an instance of the client. And so we say client equals. Okay, we'll grab the client. And then this is the part that, again, I keep finding remarkably simplistic about it all, is if I want to identify the user. So often users start off as anonymous, and then they become a user that we somehow know more about. And so if it's just there, you're identifying them through like a login page, right? Or you could do this for other entitlements as well. So we're going to here, I'm going to pop in a user key, and that will be whatever username we catch here. So let's change this to V model, and then and so, oops. Okay, great. So let's return that username object in there. Cool. And find it here. Okay, let's see if we get enough of this right. And then, okay, fantastic. Seems like we should have something going on here. Let's see if I'm missing anything else. Okay, cool. So now, how do I get that login component? Oops, not happy. Okay, oops. Yes, of course, I just put something. There we go. Got it. Sorry about that view. Okay, how are we doing now? Hey, look, there's our login. Fantastic. Where is, oops. I think somehow I closed my LaunchDarkly. That's not awesome. Okay. And so what we've got now is when we take in that username, we're going to send it to LaunchDarkly to identify the user and whether it was username or other metadata. So you can capture browser-based information, geographic information, and you can send that along. And what you've done is you take this presentation that you have in your web app, and you've moved those rules and those decisions out of there. So it's a lot easier to build now. And so when we ask that LaunchDarkly for variations back or to evaluate a flag now, they'll use the user's identity and be able to show us what variations the user should see. Okay, so if I've got this, and I think the only thing I have to do here, how are we on time? I feel like we are close to the end, in which case we may need to, let's see, Brian or anybody. Okay, I will keep going while I wait to hear how we're doing on time. So when we do these, let's see, event handling. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this button, and when we log in, we're just going to have a click directive here, as we're going to take that username and apply it. Okay. I don't care about count. I care about username. And let's just see here. One moment. All right, so I'm just going to take us through just the last piece of this. Sounds like we're at time. So just want to have you see a little bit more of this working. I don't think we're going to get as far as I'd like today. Bummed that VIF did not work like I expected it to, or like I've got multiple working apps with it. What I will do is make sure I'm going to come back to the comments here, post the updated links. I'll push the rest of the code that I have over to main, and then folks can see it running both on the Netlify site and be able to pull down the source code and look at it. All right. So Let's go back. We've got our dark launch with a view. And oh, look, okay, invalid user specified. Okay, so we can see that the data is coming in. So what we're going to do is LaunchDarkly's SDK expects either the user to be anonymous or to have the user ID entered here. And so what we're going to do is start with anonymous as the name. Oops. Okay. So now, cool. So nothing's mad anymore, but that's not much of a login. So, and so now we've got a user logged in, but what does that mean? What does it do for us? Let me see if I can show you here. And I think we're going to call it here because I want you to see that. I'm hoping I can show you that data in LaunchDarkly. And then I think we're going to call it a day. All right. So what we have as an option now is because the user has been sending in, or because we're sending in username on login, now we can take and say something like we had themes and we wanted to roll out a light and dark mode theme. We could start targeting by user. And so let's see if we have, so there's anonymous, cool. Let's see if we get Alex in there too. And clearly my view skills are not knocking it out of the park today. So let's go back. Once the client has attempted to use this ID, we should see the username in here, and then we could start targeting the user. And even if the username hasn't been registered yet, so again, this is all an asynchronous system, then what I can do is I can say, sure, target these users, we won't do anonymous because that's everybody, with this light and dark mode, whereas everyone else will get light mode only. So imagine you're trying to roll out changes and you want only your product owner, only the product team to see it first. So they can run through it, they can show it to stakeholders, you could show it to your friends first. This is the way you could target those users. Additionally, you can do other targeting rules, like you can pick things like, let's do the scroll real quick here, right? You could pick geographic issues, geographic location. You could use names, emails, IP. So again, if you think about doing development with a team, you could actually target by IP so that you would only see your changes and others would only see theirs while you're in the development environment. All right, I'm just going to, that's saved. Okay, and so I'm going to call it there. I know we're at time. I know there's other things going on. So thanks for folks for watching. Sorry for the things that didn't go quite well. I'm pretty sure you're going to see a couple updates pushed very quickly. Thanks very much.